NEC 225.39 applies specifically to outdoor branch circuits and feeders. It mandates that disconnects for these outdoor circuits and feeders have a minimum size that corresponds to the ampacity of the circuit or feeder they are designed to protect. NEC 225.31, on the other hand, addresses indoor feeders. This section does not explicitly define a minimum size for disconnects used with indoor feeders. However, it does stipulate that the disconnecting means must be appropriately rated for the feeder's ampacity, ensuring it can safely handle the feeder's maximum current carrying capacity. NEC 408.31 focuses on panel boards and requires that all panel boards be equipped with a main disconnect. The minimum size of this main disconnect is determined by the ampacity of the feeder that supplies the panel board. To summarize the code requirements, there is no specific minimum size requirement for disconnects serving indoor feeders. Therefore, using a 40 amp subfed panel is generally permissible. However, it is critical that the main disconnect for this subfed panel is appropriately sized to match the ampacity of the feeder supplying it. The absence of a minimum size requirement for indoor feeder disconnects does not mean that any size disconnect is acceptable. The disconnect must still be adequately rated to handle the feeder's load. This ensures the safety and reliability of the electrical system. Let's delve a little deeper into each of these code sections to fully understand their implications. NEC 225.39, which governs outdoor branch circuits and feeders, is in place to ensure that outdoor electrical systems are adequately protected from overcurrents and faults. The requirement for a minimum disconnect size is based on the feeder's ampacity. This means that the disconnect must be able to safely interrupt the maximum current that the feeder is designed to carry. This provision is crucial for preventing damage to equipment and reducing the risk of electrical fires, especially in outdoor environments where exposure to the elements can increase the likelihood of faults. Moving on to NEC 225.31, which pertains to indoor feeders. While this section doesn't specify a minimum disconnect size, it emphasizes the importance of selecting a disconnecting means that is suitable for the feeder's ampacity. This suitability requirement means that the disconnect must be capable of handling the feeder's maximum current without overheating or failing. It also implies that the disconnect should be appropriately rated for the voltage and interrupting capacity required by the electrical system. The phrase suitable for the ampacity of the feeder allows some engineering judgments. Installers have to ensure that any equipment they install is rated and approved for the application to avoid any issues. NEC 408.31 addresses panel boards, which are distribution points within an electrical system. The requirement for a main disconnect in panel boards is a fundamental safety feature. This disconnect allows for the entire panel board to be de-energized for maintenance, repairs, or in emergency situations. The size of the main disconnect must be matched to the ampacity of the feeder supplying the panel board. This ensures that the disconnect can safely interrupt the entire load served by the panel board. Now, let's address the question of whether a 40 amp subfed panel is permitted. Based on the code requirements discussed, the answer is generally yes, as long as the main disconnect for the subfed panel is sized appropriately for the feeder's ampacity. This means that if the feeder supplying the subfed panel has an ampacity of 40 amps, the main disconnect should also be rated for at least 40 amps. However, it is important to consider any potential future increases in load when sizing the feeder and disconnect. It may be prudent to upsize the feeder and disconnect to accommodate future expansion. In addition to the code requirements, there are other factors to consider when selecting disconnects for feeders. These factors include the environment in which the disconnect will be installed, the type of load being served, and the available space. For example, in a corrosive environment, a disconnect with an MF4X rating may be required to protect it from corrosion. For a motor load, a disconnect with a horsepower rating may be necessary, and in a confined space, a compact disconnect may be the only option. When working with electrical systems, it is always important to consult with a qualified electrician or electrical engineer to ensure that the installation meets all applicable codes and standards. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it is essential to take all necessary precautions to protect yourself and others. A qualified professional can assess the specific requirements of your installation and recommend the appropriate disconnects and other electrical equipment. They can also ensure that the installation is performed safely and correctly. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, is a comprehensive set of standards for electrical installations. It is updated every 3 years to reflect changes in technology and best practices. The NEC is not law, but it is widely adopted by state and local governments, and it serves as the basis for most electrical inspections. Familiarizing yourself with the NEC is essential for anyone working with electrical systems. It provides detailed guidance on all aspects of electrical installations, from wiring methods to overcurrent protection to grounding and bonding. In addition to the specific code sections discussed earlier, there are other sections of the NEC that may be relevant to feeder disconnect sizing. For example, NEC 310.15 provides guidance on conductor ampacity, which is essential for determining the appropriate size of the feeder and disconnect. NEC 240.4 discusses overcurrent protection, which is another critical aspect of electrical safety. And NEC 250 provides requirements for grounding and bonding, which are essential for preventing electrical shock hazards. The NEC also includes tables that provide specific requirements for different types of electrical equipment. For example, Table 310.16 lists the allowable ampacities of insulated conductors based on their size and temperature rating. Table 430.52 provides guidance on the sizing of motor circuit conductors and overcurrent protection devices. Using these tables correctly is essential for ensuring that electrical installations comply with the NEC. In conclusion, while there is no specific minimum size requirement for disconnects for indoor feeders, it is crucial to select a disconnecting means that is suitable for the feeder's ampacity. The main disconnect for sub-panel must be sized appropriately for the feeder supplying the panel. Always consult with a qualified electrician or electrical engineer to ensure that the installation meets all applicable codes and standards.